So this is a very difficult talk. Firstly, it's in a science session, but it's not about science. I'm an experimental nuclear and accelerator physicist, quite somewhat away from the particle physics. And my association and interactions with Rohini have been mainly because of her other dimension, that's women in science. So I'm trying to present some perspective about that in this talk. So of course would like to dedicate this talk to her memory because she's been an inspirational role model, mentor, friend and a pillar of support. I put this line, a scientist who happened to be a woman. She often said this is how she would like people to remember her. And as a woman scientist, once in the last 20 years after she has really had a great stature, using her stature as a scientist, she really put in tremendous effort, not just in India but globally. And many of these things have already been talked about. You will hear more about it in detail in Shubhavati's talk. But two things I want to mention, that around 2000 when she attended the first international conference for women in physics, which was organized by then a working group which was set up under IUPAC. And after that, when she came back, she made a lot of effort in getting the women science panel started in academy, and subsequently she also actually put in a lot of effort in initiating Gender in Physics Working Group for IPA. This happened in 2017. So let me just very quickly summarize at a glance what are her prominent roles in gender in STEM, in promoting gender equity in STEM. She, as I said, in the last 20 to 25 years, more than 2 decades, she worked for this cause for which she was passionate about, and she actually played a major role in policy making in many aspects. So she's been member of various expert committees, implementation of programs for accelerated participation of women in science and technology and Department of Science and Technology. She was chair of advisory committee for the DST for the implementation of the Gender Advancement Transformative Gati Initiative, Gati. This is actually kind of the program based on Athena Swan program. She was also chair of the committee to draft the Equity and Inclusion chapter of the Science and Technology Innovation Policy, STIP 2020. She was member of the World Academy of Sciences Gender Advisory Committee, member of Standing Committee of Women in Science in Government of India from 2015 till recently. She was chair of the Committee for Physics and Mathematical Sciences WS scheme of DST 2004 to 2007. This was the unique scheme which Department of Science Technology initiated for facilitating fellowship for women who have had a break in career. She was founding chair and panel for women in science of Indian Academy of Sciences, Bangalore in India. Then she was a member of joint panel for women in science of all the 3 academies, and she was convener of the Committee of Women in Science of the Indian Academy of Sciences. Besides this, she has many firsts for the election to the academies, many awards in India and many things. I will talk about 2 things which she actually carried out. When in 2005, today as I was coming into the ISC, I remembered that one of my first real intense interaction with her was in 2005 when she organized a women scientist meeting, which was along with the TWAS program. And at that time, since I fell in the right age group, I was called as a young woman science speaker. Nilima is also there, she was there. And at that time, during the panel discussion, Rohini highlighted that in India, one of the major lacunas was the data did not exist. And I think subsequent to that, along with NIAS and Indian Academy of Sciences, she undertook this report. And this first detailed IAS NIAS research report came out in 2010. And I list a few findings from here because I think in spite of a considerable time passed, these things are still relevant. So it says that significant participation of women in studying and teaching at school undergraduate level. However, numbers plummet for women pursuing research careers. Numbers further decrease with perceived high status of the institution and with increasing position of the hierarchy. Globally, this is known as a leaky pipeline, but in India, the pipeline is really largely leaky. And this point, which she makes then, that the more elite is the institute, less the fraction of gender is unsurprisingly or unfortunately still remains true. need for transparency in selection procedure at institutes. This also is something, the next points are very relevant. Again, is the majority of unemployed women PhDs said they did not get jobs, while only 3% cited family reasons for not working. Because this is a kind of a perception that the women do not want to pursue further because of family reasons. About 85% women said they managed to balance family and career. Many chose to negotiate winding career paths to stay on research track after childbirth. About 14% women single, significantly higher than male counterpart. And the proverbial glass ceiling comes not from family but from systemic biases at institutional level. And even today, that is many of these things she still talked about. In the previous talk, they mentioned that she was supposed to have gone to Calcutta in July 24 for a conference. This was a conference on women in quantum science technology where she participated remotely. And the speech she gave there in the inauguration is perhaps her last public speech. And in that, she still highlights and emphasizes this point. And she used to, she had this favorite quote from Virginia Slim ads that you have come a long way, baby, but miles to go. And she said that most of these systemic problems still remain, that the adequate child care, adequate facilities in the system to help people, help women do their career. So when you talk about promoting gender equity, there are three aspects to it, which is there is the attracting women to the science, training them and retaining them. And this is where I just will deal with something very small fraction of this part in today's talk. That's why I said that how gender manifests in the system. In this conference in which she went in 2000, she also said that after her talk talking about her journey in science, many scientists from Asia and Africa region talked to her, telling her that they could relate to her story more easily than those from the Western world. And that motivated her to actually bring back the stories of the women scientists to more widely give the publicity, and that resulted in Lilavati's Daughters. The second edition of this book was released in July 2024, and you see both the authors here. Rohini talked candidly about her own journey, her own problems, her own difficulties, as well as some things which the failures or things which should have gone, and very few people can manage to do it without I'm being so objective about and look at it. So one of the things which was also mentioned and which we all feel that she had a very productive postdoc time at TIFR, but the job happened at Bombay University. She was not even considered for a job at TIFR. And this is something which stayed with her, obviously. It did not go away, and I know that through a lot of personal interactions with her. Just to put the thing that it was actually a loss for TIFR, I think, is because later she now not only was an adjunct at TIFR, but she was also the member of management board for Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education, which is a center for TIFR. So just some personal memories. So as I said, I actually interacted with Rohini more in a capacity of women in science interaction since 2000 onwards, but I have known her as when I joined TIFR as a graduate student. She's the one actually who got me into the women in science, because in this meeting in 2005, after that she told me, you have to do it. There is no option because there are so few people, and you have to do it, and you have to do something more than a lip service, not just that. After that, I actually was together with her on various committees, and in the last decade we also had academic interactions because she was on various DAE review committees, and then we also worked on some programs together. Of course, I learned a lot from her, and there are many things, but I will not go into the details of it. What impressed me the most and what also helped me to overcome sometimes the challenges is her energy, enthusiasm, passion for everything else that she did, and the precision in everything that she did. In addition to all of that, she was very empathetic and caring, and it's impossible to ignore. You could never ignore her. I wish I could have told this in person to her, that thank you, Rohini, for everything that you did. We had several plans. We both come from Maharashtrians. We shared some thoughts about or the interest about literature, but many things remained, also some remained unfulfilled. One of that was we wanted to go and watch a very famous Marathi play together, among other things. And she wanted me to start a conference series for young women physicists as well. I was an IPA secretary. This is something which actually has remained, but I hope IPA will take this up. On 26 August, I actually I went and met her. She was in hospital waiting to be, and she got discharged on the same day. I met her actually quite by chance. And that day she talked to me that she cannot, her sisters have told her she cannot travel anymore, but she will be sitting at home and work on the computer. And she discussed with me about working on this issue, that how the MCQ multiple choice question tests are affected by gender. This is what she wanted to take further on. On 5th of October, just shortly before her operation, she actually sent a link about a new result which has come out, which was the gender gap in physics entrenched by biased collaboration networks. In next 10 minutes, I just want to give you a glimpse of both these aspects, something she wanted to do and something she had done partly. So in 2023, India organized International Conference on Women in Physics, and as a satellite event to that, Rohini actually organized a panel discussion at Shivnada University in a hybrid mode. And the topic of the discussion was, are multiple choice question tests in STEM gendered? The panelists were Roop Manjari Ghosh, Nisim Kanekar, Debashish Ghoshal, Nandini Chatterjee and Kate Wilson. And Rohini, then Munmun and Priya Johri from Shivnadar was involved. So the basically what was, and this is what, I mean, this summary of this report is, this discussion is what I will now present in next few minutes. The entire discussion is available on the YouTube. So basically that when we talk about attracting women to science, in India at an undergraduate level, there are good number of women exist in science. But when they are trying to get into a research program, most of these tests or level of higher education, many examinations are multiple choice questions because of the large numbers which participate and to have an objective evaluation. And there are huge gender gap exists. So the questions which she posed to in the panel was, is there a gender dependence of the fraction that clears the various entrance tests? Does this depend on the type of the entrance test? And if yes, what are the possible reasons? So what do we see? That as I just mentioned, in India, the admissions to almost all prestigious are MCQ types. If typically in the toppers to the university examinations, which are not MCQ type, there are dominantly women. Whereas if you look at the UPSC examinations in India, there is also the success percentage for women is very high, and this is actually is a combination of MCQ plus the descriptive or the more conventional exams. So it's very evident that there are differences, but also the differences, gender difference are in the average, as well as the gender distribution is again much different. If you look at the numbers at the JEE entrance, I think this is about 7 years data. So there are the selection rate for the male is about 6.4%, and for women it's about less by a factor of 3. This is compared with an MIT test, which is not just the MCQ. There actually the female applicants have much higher success rate. This is the data for two major entrance exams in India. The NET, which is the CSIR NET exam, which is there. I'm sorry for the quality of the figure. I'll spell out what it is. And this is the JEST exam. So this is the 7-year data, and this is about 10-year data. This is compiled by Debashish Ghoshal, and this is by Nisim Kanekar. So here again you see this is just the number of the years. This is the fraction 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and this is the male fraction, and this is the female fraction. And this for other sciences except for life sciences, the trend is very similar. And here again you can see the numbers of the selected people. This is just the number of years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 years. And here it is the 12 to 22, the years which has been put. So here again, if you also look at the numbers in the top 100, they are quite small. This was a very interesting work by Kate Wilson, and this is how Rohini had spotted her for inviting for the panel discussion. And then it also is that Kate Wilson actually did some work with in collaboration with Homi Bhabha Science Center, Shirish Praveen Pathak there, and Rohini wanted to proceed further on that. So this is a question which is like, why do raindrops fall with near constant speed during the later stages of the descent? And this was a question during 10 to 15. Then there is a slight different variation of that question and a further variation in that. And you can see the question has just gone from do to a does, but what has changed here is if you look at the option B, which is the air resistance just balances the force of the gravity, and in the final one, it is the air resistance balances the force of the gravity. The just has been omitted. And what they looked at is the fraction of the women students getting this correct after the word just was dropped has changed significantly, and the gender gap closes. So therefore the claim is that from this, based on student feedback, is that just is not a scientific word, at least in the minds of the female students. The use of this word in the correct answer pushed female students away from choosing it to an alternative that was true but incorrect. When we removed the word just, the fraction of girls answering the question correctly increased, and the performance gap on this question was reduced by more than half with no change in the male performance. These results show that test writers should be aware that the wording of a question can influence students' thinking. Now there was quite a bit of discussion during this panel, and it was also further said that this concept of understanding certain words or the response to the certain words is very much region dependent. It's different in different countries, and such studies in India are very, very sparse. The other thing which was shown, I can actually not go in details of it, but basically again Kate had compared the data for Australian Science Olympiad program and the National Standard Examination, which is conducted by IAPT as for the, I think as an entrance to the Olympiad or something equivalent. And here again the main thing which you have to see is here the average gap is plotted. So this is the average gap and comes in. So again always there is a difference between the what they call facility just the fraction. That is the female fraction is lower than the male fraction in getting correct answer. And here you can see again the distribution for the female students in marks is centered on the lower side. So Professor Nandini Chatterjee, she actually looks at it from the cognitive nature of the problem. Yeah, I'll go quickly. Yeah. And then what she said was that there of course was after in 2019 there was a lot of uproar and shown that there is no correlation between mathematical ability and gender, but there is her studies indicate that task taking strategies for cognitive tasks have demonstrated gender differences in time management, planning, motivation and testing efforts. Females show better performance while males seem to be more willing to take risks in guessing the solution. And this is one of the things which is said again and again, that the female students are not keen in taking the risk. So when there is a negative marking, they are hesitant to attempt the question. So one of the possibilities therefore is abolish negative markings. But basically I think all this just points that we need to have the wider data and rigorous analysis for gender gap in performance to understand the steps. I just want to introduce this. I'm anyway out of time. So this was the second topic which came in, which is the gender gap in physics, entrenched by that. So here this work is done by, I forget the name, yeah, Fariba Karimi and her collaborator. What they did is they have analyzed about 700,000 papers from APS between 1893 to 2020 and about 8.5 million citations. They have deduced the genders of first authors with high confidence, what they call, for about 140,000 people. And these are quite shocking observations that despite rising overall numbers of female physicists and female-led papers, the authors find that the ratio of male to female first authors and researchers has remained stable for decades. In fact, the gender gap in absolute number appears to be growing. And the point they make is biased collaboration and citation patterns are responsible for driving the gender gap in physics, and poor female representation persists due to established male physicists preferring to work with early career male researchers. This is just their paper, and what suggested intervention is that creating opportunities to collaborate with senior men and giving them more, or I mean, this is their words, more opportunities, but you need that. So I would like to just end here. I think I'm also out of time. So this is a picture of Rohini from the conference in November 22. And she's, as always, with her signature smile among all women physicists, which was this conference. She had really a good group of women, and so we took a picture there. And this is the Padlet, which is set up by Gender in Physics Working Group for her. I would share the link people can add their memoirs. Thank you.